Did you know that a full-size US Navy aircraft carrier can only go around 35 miles an hour? That seems pretty lame, considering that I can go 50 miles an hour on my little blue scooter. In this video, I'm going to make a remote control scale model aircraft carrier go faster than a real one. And I don't mean scale speed, I mean actually faster in real life speed. This video is sponsored by War Thunder. So how did I end up with an RC aircraft carrier in the first place? I'm not really the kind of person that's into detailed scale models, and if you watch my videos then you've probably noticed that I'm much more interested in function over form. But there is one exception, and that's miniature ships. But the aesthetics only matter while they're crashing through waves. Can't tell you why, but there's just something about a ship crashing through waves that really gets me going. So naturally, I want a mini ship of my own that crashes through waves, but I'm not trying to spend the rest of my life with tweezers gluing little handrails and radio antennas in place. But lucky for me, it turns out that you can just go buy a 1/200th scale Nimitz class aircraft carrier that shows up right at your door. Wow-wee. There is one issue though. The instructions say that it can only sail on calm lakes or pools. I don't think these people realize that this is a US naval vessel they're dealing with here. This ship should be able to go anywhere at once and smash through all the waves. So in this video, I'm going to put this aircraft carrier through its sea trials and watch it smash through some waves. Or see if the people who wrote these instructions know something I don't. All you have to do after taking this thing out of the box is install the bridge and all the little airplanes. Since I was anticipating some waves coming over the bow, I glued the little models in place. I don't know if I'm cut out for this sort of thing. Only had it out of the box for 5 minutes and I've already broken 2 parts. Oh, god damn. This thing is powered by 4 suspiciously large 550 size brushed motors and a suspiciously small 2800 mAh 2-cell LiPo battery. After charging it up, it was time for the maiden voyage.
It's pretty big.
Pretty good, huh?
200th scale, you said?
A respectable scale model.
Yeah.
Scale modeler.
It's pretty detailed. I like the planes.
Oh, here she comes, boys! We're doing the maiden voyage on Lake Union in Seattle, and we're launching it off my real boat so that we can drive around and get some chase footage. We're taping up all the hatches so that hopefully it's completely watertight. That way we can try and wake surf with it, and if it flips over, it won't sink. Here it goes. Maiden voyage. Woo! It floats sideways. What the heck? Let's see if it goes at least. Oh yeah. It's actually not that slow. Oh shit, we're really close to this thing. With Sebastian at the helm and some ballast to get it to float level, it was time to set sail. Okay, Sebastian, let her rip.
Alright, here we go.
Whoa! That thing is so fast!
God, almost a plane.
Holy crap! Whoa! Don't hit us. Woo-hoo. Damn! You're a speed demon, Sebastian. Look at that thing, the whole front of the hull is out of the water. Wow, this thing goes way faster than I thought it would. Damn, that thing is like a jet ski. I don't know why they put such big motors in it, probably just because the big brushed motors are cheap and heavy, and they needed weight in the base of the boat to keep it stable. But it definitely seems way overpowered for a scale model. Speaking of scale, Ansel busted out the FreeFly Ember to shoot in slow motion to make the movements look like they would on the full-scale version. If this makes you want your own mini aircraft carrier, then you're going to need to dish out some cash because they're not cheap. Or you could get your own full-scale aircraft carrier for free, thanks to the sponsor of this video, War Thunder. War Thunder is a multiplayer military action game that's free to play and available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Mac. While playing War Thunder, you're in command of land, sea, and air vehicles of all types that span the entire century. Each battle in War Thunder involves dozens of these epic vehicles going head-to-head in ultra-realistic maps that are inspired by real-world locations. Advanced military technologies are available like guided missiles, smoke screens, night vision, and more, as well as drones and even a nuclear strike that can flatten the entire map. The latest update, called Air Superiority, added the famous T-90M and Su-27, the new modification of Abrams Tusk II, the legendary fighter Gripen, and the F-15 Eagle. The explosion and fire effects have been completely reworked, making the battles even more realistic. You'll be immersed in the scale and intensity of battles with stunning detail in the landscapes and vehicles. The new Volcano Valley map for air battles, inspired by Kamchatka, allows you to test the latest aircrafts in battle among volcanoes. Download War Thunder for free by using the link in the description. New players and those who haven't played in over half a year will receive numerous bonus vehicle rentals. They'll also get a special decorator called Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, 3 premium vehicles for free, a week of premium account access, and more. You better hurry up because the American Vehicle bonus season will end soon. Now back to the video. We got way too much good footage of this thing, so I'll put the rest at the end of the video. But for now, let's see if it can wake surf.
Alright, time to go?
Yeah, start accelerating. Gotta get it right in that wave. Yeah. Woo-hoo! Get barreled. Get in the barrel. Oh! Oh! Sorry. Yeah.
This ship seems pretty seaworthy to me. I'd say it can definitely handle more than calm lakes or pools. It's a little unstable on the roll axis, but I'm sure a real aircraft carrier would be too if it were going Mach 1.8, which is the scale speed we're going at here.
Feeding wildlife is not good for them. Sometimes you have to teach them a lesson to be scared of humans.
Yeah. That's what you got, Duck.
So now that we had a feel for how this thing works, it was time to make it crash through some waves. And the timing here just so happened to line up with the biggest windstorm of the year.
I think it's a little bit too wavy here.
There's normally a beach here, but due to the high tide and waves, the beach was gone, so we had to look for a different spot. We eventually found this beach here that had a crosswind, and the waves were a bit more manageable.
It's not really turning, that's a bit of a concern.
This is when I learned that the hull and flight deck were very susceptible to wind. The bow would always get blown downwind, and the rudders didn't have enough control authority to turn into the wind. So a few times I had to go into reverse to make it back to the beach.
Oh, there's no chance.
We did get some nice shots of it going over big waves though, so I guess in that sense it was a successful mission. But then I got the bright idea to take it further down the beach where the waves were even bigger. First I took off some of the planes so that they wouldn't get lost. This is where things went downhill fast. If you're a model ship lover, you might want to look away. I would push the boat out into the waves, but it would immediately get turned around and wash back into shore. This was just super dumb. I had the radio in my hands, so I couldn't pick up the ship, and a few times it just got slammed. Should have called it quits after the first run.
Oh!
The little radio towers on the boat got mangled, and the remote controller got soaked. But the hull of the boat itself is actually super durable. It's made out of some thick fiberglass, and that's not going to break. For getting rolled up onto the beach, it was in surprisingly good shape. But the mast and radio towers did break off, so I hopped into Onshape and designed some new ones. Then I resin printed them on the Form 3 Plus and let the resin prints cure in the UV oven. After that, they got glued back onto the boat. There we go, good as new. The steering servo also stripped out, so I replaced it with a nice new high-tech waterproof servo. So the whole crashing through the waves thing didn't quite work out, so now I'm going to change the scope of this project. The new goal is to make it the world's fastest aircraft carrier. Now this is how fast it was with the stock 2-cell battery, and it's already way faster than it should be. Oh wait, there's a nice shot of it crashing through some waves. Very nice. Anyways, this thing came stock with a 2-cell battery, but all the components are rated to handle a 3-cell battery, so that's what I'm going to try next. It should be quite a bit faster. And it was indeed quite a bit faster, but not for long. So the ESC on this thing was rated to handle 3-cell, but what it wasn't rated for is being used in an enclosed hull with no water cooling, while running 4 big motors on 3-cell. Uh-oh. My radio's dead. And every few minutes it'll randomly go to full throttle. Oh, like right now. Full throttle in reverse. Going out into the lake. I'm wondering if it had something to do with the fact that this remote had water pouring out of it at one point. I opened up the hatch and smoke started billowing out. I think it's clear what the problem is. It's this thing. Yeah, this ESC totally burnt up. Wow, it's still really hot. So now it's time for a complete power system overhaul. I'm going to replace these 4 brushed motors with these 4 brushless motors. Apparently 4 of these 4200 kV motors would be over budget because I only bought 3, and I'm also using this slightly smaller blue motor that I had laying around. So I got all these installed along with some cheap 80 amp ESCs, and then it was back to the lake for a test drive. Okay, let's see what this thing can do. I gotta go easy though before I break it, because that's probably gonna happen.
3, 2, 1, speed run. Woo! Yeah, it feels like some of them are cutting out. Uh-oh. Now we're dead. Now we're dead in the water. I have no control. Should have bought nicer ESCs. You guys can, yeah, try pushing it. Oh, you hit my antenna. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, there's definitely smoke. Oh, not again. This keeps happening. Oh. The other ESCs are burnt too. Look at this one. 2 of them roasted. That's nasty.
So this time around, the ESCs burnt out because I didn't realize these motors are rated for 100 phase amps. And honestly, they were probably pulling more than that, since the KV of these motors is way too high for 35mm props. I know. Everyone in the comments is going to be saying, you need liquid cooling. Sure, liquid cooling might have prolonged the lifespan a tiny bit, but pulling over 100 amps through an 80 amp ESC is the real problem here. So what we really need is bigger ESCs. I decided to test these motors with one of the Vesks that I used to have on my 13-foot Boston Whaler, and it worked great. So I bought 3 more of them and took them apart and waterproofed the PCBs with epoxy. Cramming 4 of these into the hull was a bit tricky, but they all fit, and they seemed to spin the motors really well. The real benefit to these ESCs is that they are fully programmable, so I was able to set a 100 phase amp current limit, so we won't burn anything out unless I simply drive for too long and let the motors overheat. But luckily they don't heat up fast enough for that to be an issue if we're just doing a few speed runs at a time. So with these new ESCs, it clearly isn't slow, but these motors should be capable of doing over 1,000 watts each, and this definitely doesn't look like 4,000 watts is being spent here. That's the equivalent of over 5 horsepower, so something's going on. It's true that the lifeboats and airplane lifts hanging off the side of the hull are dragging in the water, but that doesn't seem like the real culprit. So next I plugged one of the Vesks into my laptop to view the telemetry data and ran one of the motors up to full throttle. What I learned is that the phase amps are maxing out at 101, while the duty cycle is only reaching 20%. Because of this, the motor is only doing 300 watts, so it's not coming anywhere near its full power potential. So what this means is that our 35mm 5-bladed propellers are too big, and they're requiring too much torque from the motors to spin properly. Torque is proportional to phase current, so this is why our phase current is prematurely maxing out at 100 amps, before the duty cycle even reaches 20%. Long story short, I need smaller props. So I hopped into the Wagoning B-Series propeller generator from Friendship Systems and made these 25mm props. I then imported the step files into Onshape to make the holes for the shafts, and 3D printed them out of Gray Pro resin on the Form 3 Plus. These props are a real testament to the detail that this printer is capable of. They're so tiny, and yet they turned out so perfect. Then I tapped some M4 threads into them to fit on the aircraft carrier's motor shafts. Here's a size comparison between the old brass props and the new ones. I then installed all 4 of them on the boat with ample Loctite and headed back to the lake.
Feels like it's doing more power.
I know it probably seems counterintuitive to most people, but with the smaller props, our duty cycle got up to 35%, which resulted in a max power of 490 watts. That's 190 watts more than the stock propellers. And the thing is, this was a static test. When the boat is moving, the props have less resistance, so the RPM goes up, the duty cycle goes up, and therefore the power goes up as well. So each motor was probably doing well over 400 watts once the boat got moving. Not sure what the max power actually was, but move it did. These props must have doubled the speed. Now it was getting to the point where you could call it crazy fast.
The water's calm. It's a perfect day for a speed test. I've got a RD Pilot flight controller in this Tupperware here, and I'm going to log the GPS data so that we can see how fast this thing goes.
Watching this footage back, it seemed quite a bit slower than it was the day before, probably because I had the GoPro mounted on the front, which held the nose down, substantially increasing the drag of the hull. According to the RD Pilot logs, we got up to 5 meters per second. That's only 11 miles per hour. It probably also didn't help that the 2 4-cell LiPos that I was using are over 10 years old, and they've been sitting at like 2 volts per cell for the last few years. They're also way bigger and heavier than they need to be, so that almost definitely slowed us down a huge amount. But this turned out to be the last time I ever drove this aircraft carrier with only 4 motors. The next round of modifications turned it into an absolute monster. But in the meantime, I got some pretty nice shots of it driving in the sunrise.
And we got a bonus cookie hiding back there. So good.
So this thing was working decently well, but it's obviously not fast enough.
Well, there's a lot of water in it, that's for sure. And it's warm in here. You can just see the grease shooting out of the stuffing boxes or whatever they're called.
I was pushing the stock drivetrain to its limits, and I wouldn't be able to fit any larger motors inside, so it was time to get creative. These are 6374 brushless Outrunner skateboard motors. I used 2 of these things to propel my direct drive Snowcat up to 50 miles per hour, and just one of them was enough power to get my whole paddleboard up on plane. There's no chance these motors will fit in the aircraft carrier, so I hopped into Onshape to design these surface-piercing drive pontoons. I also used Onshape to design these propellers. They're made with the 3-profile Onshape propeller template from Holbrook Aerospace. This template makes blade design fully parametric, so you can change everything from the pitch, to the airfoil profile, to the trailing edge thickness, all just by adjusting these numbers. Onshape is free for hobbyists, and now engineers can try it free for 6 months too. You can click on the link in the description to play around with this awesome propeller template yourself, and big thanks to Holbrook Aerospace for making the 3-profile version free to my viewers. So, as with the rest of the props in this video, I 3D printed them on my Form 3 Plus, and FDM printed the pontoons on my new Prusa XL. This is undoubtedly my new favorite FDM printer ever, and I've been going crazy with the multi-extruder capabilities for other projects. But for these pontoons, I'm just using one extruder. I purposely used a gyroid infill so that the inside is one single volume, and you're about to see why. I cut some holes in the shell and poured in 2-part expanding polyurethane foam. This foam will expand and fill up the entire volume of the pontoons, making it stronger and unsinkable. And as usual, I poured in too much. I did the same thing to the other side since the foam didn't flow all the way through, and then shaved off the excess once it cured. So these motors are not waterproof, but they're definitely going to need to be since I'm going to be running them underwater. So I opened them up to have a look inside.
It looks like the hull sensors are already partially potted. Wow, the inside of this thing just got really torn up while I was driving that Snowcat in the sand.
The first thing I did was put corrosion X on the bearings to keep epoxy away, and then I injected epoxy into everywhere. And then I put the motors back together and spun them for hours while the epoxy cured. And that's how you make a waterproof motor. Next, I cut some nice motor mount plates on the CNC router and screwed those on with M4 screws. The motor mount plate got screwed onto the pontoon with M3 thread forming screws. Next, I bent some aluminum bar to hold the pontoons on either side of the aircraft carrier. That got screwed onto the pontoons with more M3 thread forming screws. To mount the props onto the motor shafts, I'm using some little flange hub things. Those just screw onto the tapped holes in the propeller with some M3 threaded screws and a crap ton of Loctite. Now we have what should be well over 10 horsepower, if all the motors are actually reaching their peak, which they're probably not. The big motors are running on 12S batteries that are mounted up on the flight deck.
This thing is gonna weigh so much. Ugh. It doesn't go. That's not good. What the hell? It was faster yesterday without the big motors on it. That sucks.
The pontoons were just plowing into the water. Then I took the 2 GoPros off, and that made a big difference. I think removing the camera on the bow is what really did it. The bow needs to be able to come up out of the water so that the hull has as little wetted area as possible.
Once it gets up on plane, it fucking goes. You can see whenever the nose falls a little bit, it slows down, like it drags in the water. So maybe if we put all the weight in the back, it'll stay up in a wheelie and be on plane better. That could help. Maximum speed was 12 meters per second. 26.8 miles per hour.
How fast does a full-scale aircraft carrier go?
That's a good question. Ah!
What?
35 plus miles per hour.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Scale.
Scale. Okay, so scale I can times mine by 200, right? 200.
Yeah, I think we're gonna beat 35.
5,560 scale miles per hour.
Ooh, yours was flying.
But actually, what would it take to get this one to go 35 plus miles per hour?
A third motor.
More motors.
I didn't add more motors, but the next day I did move the batteries further back so that it can hopefully keep more of the nose up out of the water. This seemed to make it quite a bit less stable. It was bouncing all over the place and even seemed to almost completely leave the water at one point.
Holy shit.
Here you can really see how much it accelerates when it's riding up out of the water, and then how much it decelerates when it pitches down. The hull just has so much drag. This is what you would expect from a displacement hull.
That says max 15.5 meters per second. That's fast. Right there. I think that was the first drag race I did. 34 miles per hour. Oh, that's so close to being faster than a real aircraft carrier. I gotta get just slightly faster. How can I do that?
Here's how. It might seem counterintuitive at first, but I took all the motors and ESCs out of the hull. This should help cut down on the weight. All the old prop shafts are going to have way too much drag, and the curvature on the rear section of the hull does not help it get up on plane, so I'm going to cover it up with a piece of foam. I glued the foam onto the motor shaft braces and then used packaging tape to attach it to the front. The entire bottom surface of the foam is also covered in packaging tape as well. Will my plan work? Let's find out.
Sketch.
With less weight in the boat, it definitely seemed to be a bit more squirrely, but despite this, there were a few moments where it was going straight and level enough for a clean speed run. Eventually, the tape started peeling off the bottom, and at this point it got really hard to control, so I brought it back to check the speed.
Here we go, moment of truth. 16.62 meters per second. 37.18 miles per hour. Woo! We beat the full-size aircraft carrier. Maybe. We'll never know because it's classified. Never thought it would go that fast.
So yeah, the actual top speed of a Nimitz-class carrier is classified, but 35 miles per hour is the most common estimate. So for whatever it's worth, I think it's safe to say I win. This is a 1/200th scale model, so 37 miles per hour is equivalent to the real thing going 7,400 miles per hour, or 11,900 kilometers per hour, or Mach 9.6. That's 3.4 times faster than an SR-71 Blackbird. At that speed, it would take 28 minutes to get from New York to London. So that was fun. I'll leave you with some more shots of our aircraft carrier before I made it objectively better, but also less aesthetic. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Bye. Oof.